Good evening.
Oh, how are we going to do that? Uh-oh. That could be a problem. All right, go ahead.
Good evening. It's Paranormal Science Lab Live. I'm Lisa.
I'm John.
And we are very pleased this evening to have with us author and reluctant psychic, Debra. Debra, how are you doing?
Hello.
Can you hear us okay?
I can't hear Lisa.
You can't hear Lisa? Well, she talks a lot, so that's not
very, very soft. You're coming in great, Eric.
John,
I'm sorry.
Okay, is this any better?
Here, how's that?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay.
Yeah, something we're looking at upgrading our equipment, so we're kind of playing with a new idea tonight. We've got our full spectrum camera, and it's looped through my laptop through the HDMI. So we get a little better video, hopefully, and so we'll work on the audio next. But,
yeah, but I'll try to speak up. I have to say I appreciate Debra. Most people tell me I talk too much and I'm plenty loud. So.
Oh no, you won't hear that from me.
She talks way too much. But it's usually something interesting, so I can't really.
Suck up.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, that's good.
Debra, we appreciate you coming on with us tonight. Now, your bio touts you as a reluctant psychic. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, I was raised in a really religious family, so. When you've got something like that going on, usually you end up going back and forth on, am I possessed or that sort of thing when you have some sort of psychic gift like that. And in my family's case, it seemed to be on my mother's side that they had that very strongly on their side of the family. And they never talked about it being psychic or anything like that. It was considered, a religious gift, a gift from God or like the old prophetic type gifts, from the Bible. So they were very religious people, but they did not talk about, they didn't get their tarot cards out or hang the psychic shingle up or anything like that. It was not really talked about very much. Everyone knew it, and everyone kind of knew what was going on, but no one discussed it. It was almost like a shameful thing, and I don't know why, but that's what I kind of grew up with.
So do you find yourself a religious person now, or are you more a spiritual person?
I consider myself a more spiritual person. I mean, I believe in powers of good and evil, and I believe in God and demonic stuff. So yeah, I went to all levels of experimentation through my younger years and was in Wicca for a while and just did it all. And came back to this, So I basically have come full circle and not what you would call by the book, I guess you could say. So I have my own beliefs, but they do center on, less judgment and more a belief in a higher power. So that's kind of where it comes down to, I guess.
I'm sorry, and you may have already told us this. What denomination was your family?
Well, my grandparents were Quakers, and my great-grandparents were Quakers, which here in Ohio, that's a real kind of like Amish almost, but in a different manner, but pretty strict Protestant religious beliefs. And then they lightened up a little bit and became Nazarenes. Even when my mom was young, that was, no makeup, no cards, no parties, no dancing. You didn't do hardly anything. It was very, very strict stuff. So I was raised that way, and then they lightened up a little bit from that. And I think as I got older in my teen years, I, tried Methodists, and then I went completely out there and into the Wicca and all that stuff after being in the huge haunted house, because it kind of changed my outlook onto, we weren't being told everything, basically. So I went off in search on my own.
Sure.
How old were you when you made that decision?
Well, I think when I was about 13 is when things started changing, 12 and 13, because I got a Ouija board for Christmas. And, of course, back in those days, they sold those as, amaze your friends. That's sort of a situation. So, we got one for Christmas and tried it, and nothing really happened. we thought, and then all hell broke loose in the house. So
I was going to say,
at that
Ouija
point,
board for Christmas just seems like a bad idea.
Oh, I know. Well, see, we didn't know. They advertised those on the Saturday afternoon cartoons. So it was like, wow, what a cool thing. So I got one, and that's what happened. And so I don't know. That seems so cliche. I understand that, but I'm telling you, that is exactly when things really started going kind of south for me, as far as seeing some negativity and negative things going on. Now, I still haven't figured out whether it was my own, psychic streak along with that, or puberty along with those two other things, the Ouija board, the psychic streak, and puberty, because some people believe that that's when it comes in full force or whatever. So who knows? I still, wonder about that a lot.
Yeah, I guess some people do say that. In my family, it happens to be mid-30s, which is kind of odd. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it really is interesting. In fact, it was mid-30s for my mother, my grandmother, myself, and my sister. So you either go crazy or you do something with it. I just went crazy.
See, I don't quite buy his story on it comes through in the mid-30s. I think that's when they've just started dealing with it.
That could be, yeah. So it just depends on, on your own personal experience, I suppose. Now, I would have, when I was just a child, age 5 and 6, I would have dreams that would come true within a couple years. One time I dreamed about a doll whose hair grew, and, there was nothing like that out there. And I asked for this doll, and my parents, Santa Claus went and looked for it everywhere. Of course, I couldn't find it, and about 2 years later, it became a thing, and they got it for me then. But, as a child, and you have some kind of clairvoyance like that, you're going to be dreaming or thinking of things that are childlike. So, of course, I'm not dreaming of world events or anything like that. I don't know anything about that at that age. So, that kind of is where I started looking back after my parents told me things like that, and then realized through my younger years that it was something, that I had all along, and just didn't realize that nobody else had that stuff happen. So
Right. And I would see stuff as a kid, too. I mean, I still remember to this day this little furry creature jumping out of a bush in my front yard. I still don't know what that is. I always attributed to some sort of sprite or something. I don't know.
Scare you?
No, didn't scare me. We lived on a farm out in Oklahoma, and there was always odd things going on. And I was brought up in a pretty open-minded household. I was into sweat lodges at about age 12, 13. So it wasn't abnormal for me to see things like that. Although the little furry creature was a little odd, but it was always something a little
interesting.
Off the wall.
Some kind of elemental or something, maybe.
Yeah, it must have been. And it was just out of the blue, and I saw him straight on. It wasn't out of the corner of the eye type thing. And he just kind of disappeared, but it was odd. Very interesting looking.
Yeah.
I'd like to have that farm back.
So what did you find in your journey through alternate philosophies?
Well, I just have finally gotten to the point where I believe, like I said, I believe in God, or a being that is, not as judgmental as we create as humans. I believe that, if you are a good person and you do well, and I believe in love as the whole of the law. That's the way to put it, basically. Everything else kind of goes out the window with that. Yes, I understand about the Bible, but I understand about people that wrote the Bible, or in different times. And I do believe in, some of the visions and things that are stated in there, of course. I just believe that you have to forgive one another, love one another, do as much as you can on the positive side to give back to others while you're here in this lifetime. And then I believe that our own self-doubt, our own shame, our own things that we're dealt, what hands we're dealt in life, are what keep us held back more than any person or God or whatever would ever do. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I have a mixture of all things, basically, from all the things that I've gone through, I guess.
Well, and I think most people who kind of take this journey and have the gift tend to end up coming to that kind of conclusion, or as John said, going crazy, one of the two almost, it seems. What made you take the leap to becoming a medium and working with the public?
Well, I went back and forth and back and forth, and you know, there are times when I still do. You know, to be quite honest with you, I know I've been given something a little extra maybe than the average person with this, and so I want to help others with it if, in fact, that's what I am supposed to be doing. So what I was going through for so many years is, you know, what is this? Which side is this from? You know, is this something that I should be involved in? So I really went into the really deep questions on questioning the very reason. Why would I be given something like this, you know? Because of all the religious teachings, you know, that it could be, you know, demonic or whatever. And then I started doing a lot more research, and I got more involved in it to where and I'm not Catholic, of course, but even the Catholic exorcists explain that the demonic cannot know things from the future. They simply are not given that. That is a gift. That is God's prerogative. And so, in other words, when I found myself seeing things that had not yet happened, or diagnosing, you know, cancers or whatever in someone, and then finding out that that was true, I finally realized I was seeing the future, and I was being given this to help somebody, you know, for that particular reason. At that point is when I realized, okay, if everyone that knows says that demons and demonic and evil stuff cannot know the future, then obviously I was getting something from another source, a good source. And so that's kind of when I started to flip a little bit on it, as far as flip my ideas on, okay, don't be so afraid of it. Try to go with it. Try to help others as much as possible. But then I also came down to the point where I believe that can as well attract negativity to you, because if you believe in a dark side like I do, then anything that is out there like that, as far as biblically, is going to hate anybody with the gifts of the light, is the way I've just basically come down to believe. Some people do not believe that. They do not believe in demonic or, you know, good and evil and all that, so it won't resonate with them at all. But those who do usually understand what I'm talking about, because sometimes you end up getting a lot of torment, I don't know, to make you give up, to try to bring you down. You know, that's just kind of what I think it's all about. The negative side will do everything they can to try to bring you down. So, yeah, so that's a long answer, but that's kind of where I'm coming from on that one.
Long answers are good for TV.
Yeah.
No, and I agree with you, and I think Lisa does too. I mean, we both know there's a good side and a bad side. We have to walk that gray road. That's just who we are. Yeah. And as sensitives, it's really kind of our job to walk more gray than one side or the other. One side or the other throws the balance off, and if without the balance, nothing exists. So there has to be those that don't believe in the darker side. You know, you're basically just, and I just lost my train of thought. You're basically just, you're fooling yourself. I mean, honestly,
right?
Because it's there.
I agree. And the thing is that you know, without really knowing you to, you know, your personal beliefs like that, you know, I always hesitate to say much about that because people think you're a lunatic, you know. And it's like, no, I've really seen, you know, you can't walk into a room with a digital recorder and hear something growling, spitting, and threatening someone's life by name and not know there's something else out there. You can't. Right. Where does that come from, you know? It's got to come from somewhere. You know, if you were standing there alone or with one other person and both of you were quiet, you know, sure, it's coming from somewhere. So, you know, that's another thing that really got me when I started going along with some ghost hunting groups to try to help them or give impressions to them or whatever. And I started hearing these kind of things. It was like, whoa, you know, I already knew, but yet that just confirmed everything even more so. So, yeah, it's there's a frightening side to it, and I believe that those who are blessed with anything, especially those that want to do good and help others in the world with whatever gifts they have, they're they got a big target painted on their backs. That's what I think, and you have to just use as much protection and that sort of thing as you can.
I agree. I think that those with gifts, we tend to be almost a beacon that spirit, good or bad, or however you want to term it, are attracted to. And so, yeah, you have to be very aware, protect yourself, and be in the right frame of mind when you are interacting.
Yes, I agree.
Otherwise, you will get yourself in trouble. And I've seen people get themselves in trouble. So
yeah, yep, very true.
I do think I tend to be one that thinks that inhuman and demonic tend to be more rare than it's sometimes portrayed these days.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think often just nasty, horrible human spirits are mistaken for something inhuman often.
Well, and I think we've seen, human beings we all have in our lives that I'm pretty sure they're demons. I mean, they're just evil, nasty people, and they can't be any better in death than they were in life. So, I think those are the type of people that cause all the darker hauntings we've seen over time. I mean, I'm sure that there are inhumans. I have no doubt about that. But I think a lot of what we see is mostly just nasty people.
Yeah, there's there's a lot of that out there. When you think about all the sociopaths that are just walking around every day with us, con men, serial killers. I mean, you can go to varying degrees, of course, but I mean, yes, they're out there. So you know what's going to happen when they've passed away. If their spirits are lingering anywhere, they're going to be just the same. I always laugh because a friend of mine, Brian Fain of Maslin Ghost Hunters Society, I go on a lot of their investigations and have helped them before in different areas. And he's very, very much the skeptic and very scientific and, about the opposite of me as far as, a high-tech type of guy. And he always talks about that and how, it's just, there's no way to go in and guarantee that you're going to rid a home or a business or whatever of a spirit. It's just as if I walked into your house and said, okay, I want you to get out now. And you said, well, maybe I'll get out or maybe I won't, because it's your house. So that's the way it is. I believe that you can't actually guarantee that to anyone. As anyone that's a human spirit, they will do just as they did in life. And they may say yes, they may say no. So that's kind of the way I believe on that one as well.
I agree. I mean, we Lisa and I both agree. Doing the house clearings and stuff like that, you can't. You probably will never get rid of them entirely.
Yep.
You may be able to calm them down or to keep them in check, but I don't know if you could. I don't know if they'll ever go away. No. I don't think that they ever do.
Not unless they decide to.
Yeah, unless they just decide to want to screw with these people for them out.
And I don't know what you guys believe, but I'm not sure. Do you also believe that it's? Well, I lost my train of thought too.
That's okay. We have a lot of derailed trains here.
It'll come back to me. So.
We Lisa and I are we're very much earth-based thought process as far as spirituality. So the dealing with those type of entities is just an everyday thing. I mean, really, it's not. I don't personally think that the negative spirits are something that I would eradicate, because it goes back to balance. Without the balance, we don't exist. So that's just something that is. I won't want them to be like a major point in my life, but I think we all run across times in our lives that are lower than others. And I mean, I went through, plenty of drinking, trying to drink away my psychic abilities. And I don't mind telling people that because it's the truth. And I think a lot of people do it. I think a lot of us that deal with this on an everyday basis, we don't know how to deal with it, so we drink it away, or we end up doing drugs, or whatever, bad relationships, and just doing stupid, silly stuff. But
Yeah, just a way to create a distraction.
Right. And it really never, I mean, alcohol numbed it, but it was still there. So it was like, you know, I was just it was a drunken state, you know, but it was still good, you know.
Yeah, it's like a self-medication thing, you know.
Right, it is.
Exactly. Now,
you know, I play music for a living still as well. So the other thing is like I can sometimes walk into a place and it's a busy place and getting ready to do my job, and I'll get a feeling from somewhere, you know, around the room somewhere. And I finally get it pinpointed, and what I realized over the years is it's a feeling of, that same feeling is a feeling of danger, and yet there is no degree marker on that for me to be able to tell whether it's a guy that had, you know, a fight with his wife and I'm picking up that, you know what I mean? That
right.
kind of negative feeling, or if it's a serial killer going to get me, you know? There's no in between. It's like it all feels like danger to me, and that's the problem with this gift, I think, is that you can pick up things like that from others, but you can't exactly tell the degree, and you can't always tell exactly what's going on. You just know there's something sometimes.
I think eventually you get to that point. You said something back a few minutes ago that you started going out with paranormal groups. I think that's probably been one of the better things I've ever done is joining well, actually I was forced into it, but kicking and screaming.
Let's start that again.
But, you know, going out with a paranormal group, because it allows you the ability to work with your psychic self without really
validated. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get and a lot of times you get instant validation, or later on we get validation. I mean, there's been times that I've picked stuff up that Lisa's found on EVPs, so that's been pretty cool. And then we also use an echo box. There is no whining in the paranormal. I whine if I want to, Eric. Leave me alone.
Hey, it's just part of the show, Eric. Get used to it.
Shut it. But we use an echo box, which is kind of cool because sometimes we get instant validation, which is really nice too.
You call it an echo box. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, like a Frank box or.
Well, you know, it's like a ghost box without a word dictionary. It's basically, or not a ghost box, but an Ovilus without a word dictionary.
Ovilus, okay.
It's using phonetics. The echo box uses a phonetic dictionary instead. Which we find to be better because we don't have any bleed through of anything else, like with a ghost box or with an Ovilus where it just says one word forever.
That's interesting. I'll have to ask my friend Brian about that. I'm sure he knows. I don't always know all the high-tech stuff, so.
It's a download you can get for Android. It's like $20. It's probably been one of the coolest tools. It's great for our tours.
Okay. And we've gotten a lot of actually very accurate things that have been validated in other manners too. But and when we say a phonetic dictionary, that's not even quite right. It's just phonetic sound.
Right. Yeah. It's not really a dictionary.
So they have to put them together.
Yeah. So it's any words that actually come out of it are words. I mean that they put together. So because there's no bleed through. I mean the other thing you hear is an echo from your own voice.
I see.
It's pretty interesting, yeah. It's been a pretty neat little tool, and for $20, you can't beat it.
Well, Brian's so scientific about all this stuff. He has all these reasons why he feels that the results from, Frank Box or whatever, because it's coming from radio, could be, you know what I mean? He's got it down to where he's figured out, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, because it could be, by skeptics, it could be trashed or whatever. And so he's really one of those types that is very, scientifically oriented to where he wants to find the exact things where he can, there's no way for them to trash them.
And that's why we don't use ghost boxes, for that reason. I mean, there's just too many ways that it could be just bleed through from a radio station.
Yeah.
That, so there's always that doubt. That's the nice thing about the
That's what he's talking about. Well, he might not, I wonder if he knows about this. I'll have to tell him about it. It sounds very interesting. Yeah,
it's a pretty fun little tool. And we just took an old Android telephone that has no signal or whatsoever, and that's all it does. It just
hook them up to some external.
Yeah, we use an external speaker system.
Yeah, okay.
And it's pretty fun. Anyway,
hey.
So Lisa's getting drunk over here on Monster. So
you should talk.
Yeah, I know. I had a monster, and I'm working on my Diet Mountain Dew right now. So let's talk about your book, The Dead Are Watching. What does the title of that actually mean?
It's kind of a follow-up. It's a follow-up in a way to my first book. My first book was called A Haunted Life, The True Ghost Story of a Reluctant Psychic. So that kind of started from the beginning and told about, like I was discussing with you guys about the childhood things and the crazy psychic family and all that stuff, and went on through, a lot of the different things and how I kind of came to terms with, what things had happened to me as far as psychically, and then started to, my path to acceptance and, fear and running from it and then coming back to it and that sort of thing. So the first book kind of laid it all out there. And then the second book is a little bit more of a follow-up, but it also contains stories of people that I've met, through my job or just people that I've known in life, friends, relatives, people like that had instances where someone came back after they passed away or they lived in a haunted house, things that were very intense as far as proof of the afterlife. And this book pretty much lays it all out, and there are a lot of different stories in there of different things that happened to people that I know and can vouch for that weren't just making things up. So, and things that happened that I watched myself as well.
Can you give us an example, one of those stories, maybe one of your favorite ones out of the book?
Well, here's one that I don't think has ever been published anywhere before. My cousin's sister-in-law was at Kent State University when the shootings happened, back in 1970 or whenever that was. She was there in the dorm room, and right down the hall from her, one of the girls that was shot, Allison Krauss, lived. She didn't know her well enough to, be good friends or hang out with her or anything, but they knew each other well enough. They lived right down the dorm hall from each other, and they spoke as they passed and that sort of thing. So when the shootings happened, of course, they were all, 19 years old, and it was pretty traumatic for everybody. And she explained that about a year later, that on that Mother's Day weekend, Kent College would have, here in Ohio, would have a Mother's Day weekend where they would allow the students to bring up their parents. So her and her friend, who lived in a dorm room, had both their parents, their mothers up there. And they were sitting there, and they could hear this sobbing throughout, somewhere. And her mother said, "Who is that crying?" And the students said, "Well, never mind. It's not, we hear it all the time." And the mothers were like, "No, that's BS. Now I know somebody's crying. Let's go out and find them." And so they started walking up and down the halls looking for the crying. The crying would come really loud. The crying would fade away. It would back and forth, back and forth. Finally, the moms were getting this, look on their faces, and they said, "Let's go back to the room." And then my cousin's sister-in-law told them, "We have been hearing this off and on now all year since Allison was killed, and we think it's her. We think it's her, grieving over the loss of everything." And she said that they didn't hear it. She was there a little while longer after that, but that first year they heard it a lot, and all the students on that floor and in the area heard that. And then after that, they didn't hear it anymore. So she grieved for at least a full year afterwards. And just a very sad, tragic story of something that was just kind of a blot on the whole national, consciousness at the time. So,
what do you think might explain, say, that situation where the activity seemed to last a year, and then you have other situations where it lasts for decades or a century or more?
Yeah, I don't know. And the thing is she was there for a while longer but didn't hear it again. So for all I know, if that same dorm is used as a dorm, there may still be people up there hearing that. I'm not certain, but at least it lasted a year while she had heard it they had heard it for about a year. Personally, I think that sometimes I believe that they can find their way to the light after they let go of the grief or whatever of a sudden loss of life. My son came back very regularly. He was killed suddenly 5 years ago by a drunk driver, and he was only 24. on top of his game, had lots to live for, really excited about life, a great kid. And he came back quite a bit, and that's in that first book, some of the stories of that. We didn't see him, but we saw him on video one night. He had a video hooked up to where he had moved home to save some money and lived in the garage for a while right before he was killed. But my husband and his friend and cousin saw him on the video, and they ran out to try to see where it was, and he was gone already. But anyway, he came back regularly, and so that tormented me, and I thought I had brought something evil with me from all these places that I'd been dealing with, you know what I mean? So I went through all the guilt of that. That's what the first book is about, basically. And then I think that he has found his way. I mean, I feel a sense of peace, and I still think he checks in once in a while, and I'm a believer in that they can check in once in a while when they feel like it. But for the most part, they're busy on the other side doing what they need to do.
And I think that they can come back and forth. I really do.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, I agree.
My grandfather shows up at my house quite often.
Really? That's interesting.
I think that a lot of what people term as guardian angels are just protective spirits that come back and watch over for whatever reason.
Yes, I would love to. I love to think that. I would love to have my son James being my my guardian angel.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it if he was. I mean, as a guide, he could very well be there helping you, guide you through what you're going through now. I mean, that's pretty common.
And that may be why he was caught on video. After
very much, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I'm a firm believer that my grandfather follows me around quite a bit and kind of keeps me out of trouble for the most part. Because he was kind of a troublemaker himself. But
once you get over the grief, the idea of that, once you get over the horrible grief, that first year or two, that idea becomes really a comfort, I mean, and that's a good thing. So yeah, I would like to think he's there, but he was a crazy fun person. So,
to be honest, I know that in my family there's a spirit that watches over a lot of family members and has been seen, thousands of miles apart and over decades.
Wow.
And dressed in mid-1800s work clothes, and we have no idea who he is. So,
wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. So we have no idea, but he seems to still be hanging around our family. So
don't let Lisa fool you. There's a lot of people that hang around Lisa.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
a whole show on its own.
My son had that psychic streak, and when he was about 7 years old, he came running to me. I would never let him play in the attic because at some point, this house that we live in there was a lot of activity, and I kind of banished everything up there and said, if we're going to live here together, you need to go up there where you don't scare us. And so that I kind of wouldn't let him go play in the attic. So he came down one day when he was about 7, I think. And he told me, he came to me, big-eyed, Mom, I was coming down the stairs, and in the foyer I saw these people standing around a guy in a coffin. It was up like on those sawhorse things Dad has in the garage. So we got to thinking about that, and I just kind of poo-pooed it and told him, well, it's okay, honey. Sometimes you can see things like that from the past just for a second, and, it's nothing that can hurt you. I gave him the whole spiel, and then I got to thinking about it more and more, and the age of this house was, absolutely of the age where they would have held, awake in the front room like that. And, in fact, when we went to get our front door replaced, we had to make a custom fitting for it for the real nice new screen door that we got for it because it was far wider than the average. And they told us at that point those kind of doors were known as coffin doors because the persons could be pallbearers and take them out the door in their in the casket without having to have trouble doing so. And so we were like, wow, he probably saw something from the past here. I mean, it's from 1917 this house was built, so long time ago.
Well, that's pretty common for kids to be a lot more clairvoyant than we are even. Yes. My nephew, I'd actually told my sister about an Indian that kind of stands watch in her house. And my nephew was kind of scared to go to his room, and my sister said, "Well, is it the Indian?" And my nephew turns to her and says, "He's dead." He didn't even know he was a ghost. So I mean, he's a pretty strong spirit. I firmly believe that he's one of my sister's guys, or for my nephew. But and it's just one of those things where kids have this tendency to see things. I know my son did.
Yeah. Well, my kids all have too, but and if you go back to the scientific viewpoint, it makes sense because kids' eyesight sees further into the light spectrum both directions than adults, and it stays that way until they're about 12 or 13. And simply they hear further into the sound frequencies than adults, and so literally they can hear and see things that adults can't.
And animals as well.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, my cat's a bigger psychic than I am.
He's a bigger whiner, too.
Yeah, he is a bigger whiner. That's funny.
Now, I want to ask you, too. Now, this is something that I've just kind of worked up on my own. I don't know. I'm just curious if you've noticed this or have a thought on it. Do you believe, as I seem to have found, that those with more of a what they would call like right brain, the creativity, childlike openness to like art and music and things like that seem to have more of a degree of psychic abilities? It just has seemed that way to me on people I've met. That and also people that have had some sort of a very scary childhood or something traumatic that happened to them in childhood, almost as though they needed to, refine or become used to that sixth sense to help them and keep them out of danger.
I think that the second is I think they're both true. I think the second one doesn't necessarily need to be a child. I think some adults, when they go through a traumatic experience, seem to
awaken.
Yeah, kind of an awakening.
Yeah.
As far as the creativity, a lot of classes like spiritual. I do a lot of classes on different things, but a lot of them will say that. If you find yourself having a hard time doing readings or whatever, to do something creative because it triggers something in your brain to kickstart that. So I think that those are both correct. I think that people that are more creative have a tendency to be more open-minded, and which I think helps them become better intuitives.
Yeah, I agree there because I think part of the issue is not, whether it's right brain, left brain, it's a matter of how open you are to experiences and not discounting or explaining away everything. And maybe people who are more creative are more willing to accept their own instincts and their own impressions, because you have to in order to be creative, whether it's music, writing, art, painting, whatever,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that there's I think that creative people are more open to accepting things like dragons and fairies. It's true.
When you're making your living or you're doing something creative like that, you are searching for ideas, and so you're open for anything that will trigger an idea. So that's kind of where I came up with the thought that has something to do with it. And like you said, that goes along with everything you just said. So
I think that, and I know some even Christian, and I'm not dogging Christians, and nobody's think that. I even think Christian artists are more apt to be receptive of other spiritualities if they, being that they're an artist. I think that just opens their mind up more to be an acceptance of others, which is what Jesus taught. Anyway, don't even get me started. I'm going to go drink my diet.
No, I definitely would be your poster girl for the kind of a mishmash of religions. I think I'm Protestant, Catholic, and I don't know, spiritualist, I suppose you would call that. But I mean, there's a mishmash there of all the beliefs, and it works for me. And I would never try to tell anyone else or convince them, to let go of their beliefs. Of course, we all have to make our own path, but yeah, I see exactly what you're saying there with all that.
And so anyway, look at the wonderful weather we're having. No.
I'm curious, Debra, that we'll try to steer this a little bit so John doesn't get on his soapbox. I'm curious. We've talked a little bit about your views of good and evil on the other side. Do you feel like you have encountered something that was inhuman or demonic?
I really do. I think that the entire thing leading up to my son's death was something kind of after. I believe that when they can't get to you, they will do everything they can to anyone open around you. And I just believe that. I believe that there's attachments, and there are evil things that will do everything they can to bring you down. Now, some people will say, no, you're just trying to make a reasoning behind bad things that happen, and hey, bad things happen to good people. Sure, that's true, but sometimes when there are too many things and too many pre-warnings, and that it sounds like something right out of a Hollywood horror movie script, then you start to question, coincidence. And I'm making the little coincidence marks, or the little marks, quotation marks on either side of that word with my fingers, But yeah, that you start to question that. You start to question.
If you were on video, we could see that.
Here, I'll do it for you.
Yes. But you start to question all that. You start to question everything. You start becoming paranoid to the point of, okay, I need to write this down, look it over, decide in my rational, logical, mind what's going on here, because too many things happened. My son saw his death coming. Even he saw it. He knew it was coming. He told me something's after me. I think something's after me, and I would be like, what? What are you talking about? He was a songwriter as well as me, and he was writing lyrics about things like one of the lines was, "As close to tortured as I've ever been is lying here wondering if my heart might beat away and away and away." And I thought, well, that's weird. He always used to write really happy songs. He started writing these horrible songs with words like that. And then I went over one night and took over to his apartment and took him some food over. I was always taking care packages. He was young and, poor. And I took him a care package, and here's this. He was real creative, and he was always messing around with different things. And here he had gotten some watercolors or something and oil paints, and he had a big 4-foot by 4-foot painting of a gigantic bloody heart, tubes and veins and blood coming out of them, and just a painting of a heart. And I'm like, James, what in the world is this? So he's writing all this stuff and talking about hearts and all this stuff. And then it all started to make sense whenever he was killed, and he wanted to be a heart donor. And a year after his death, the man who got his heart came to visit us. And it just started making sense then. I started putting everything together, and that was just one of the minor things. There were so many things like that, and there were things of a negative nature, that were mixed in with that. And that was when I decided to write the book. And that I thought, okay, I'll be able to keep my sanity by putting it all down, and I'll be able to, make sense of it perhaps, being somebody who's usually pretty logical about this stuff. But that's just one of the stories. So it's amazing.
That is.
Wow, that's kind of deflated my whole. That's pretty wild, though. I mean, that he was actually, and I think that happens a lot. But it's just not something I'm experienced. Is to be able to determine your own.
Yeah, now he knew it was coming, and I mean, it just was ridiculous. I mean, the things he would say to other people. He told this one friend of his, when I die, there's going to be a huge funeral. People are going to come from all over. He was a professional rollerblader as well as a musician. So he did things like the X Games, and he traveled and did competitions and stuff. So he said they're going to come all over, and he was sitting there skating one night with this friend. This friend came up and told us afterwards, and he said, when I die, there's going to be a big funeral. Everyone's going to come over from everywhere. All the skaters are going to come. And I'm going to go out like a rock star, and you're going to meet a redhead and go home with her that night. And the kid just laughed like, yeah, well, that sounds good. I like the way that dream ends up. And so this kid came up and told us that this actually happened after his funeral. And so I was like, That's unreal right there. You know, I mean, that's just not these are not the only two things. I mean, he did a lot of that, and towards the end, and we have things written down, and we have, you know, just a lot of stuff like that. It's just unbelievable. And it's like any second during the day, even a millisecond that might have changed things for his outcome. He was on a motorcycle on a side street, stopped at a stop sign, ready to turn right out onto the main street on his way home, and someone that was 3 times the legal limit cut the corner off, hit him head on. You know, he flew a long ways or whatever, but he lingered for 4 days in the hospital before they pronounced him brain dead. And then we found out that the woman who did this, it was his best friend's mother from high school.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, there are so many things. It's just like, it's like a Hollywood script. It honestly is. I mean, it's unbelievable, and I thought I was losing it, and that's why I had to write it all down. And, of course, it got a book deal because it's so outrageous. It's like, you know, it's just ridiculous. Even now I think about it and think of all these things. It's crazy, you know. So, but, yeah, so there were many, many, many things like this, and many things that he saw, many things that I kept feeling and didn't know why, you know, and then it all came together and made sense afterwards. So
it is amazing that some of the things that we come across and we think back later, oh yeah, that's why I felt that way. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You know, it's horrible that we have to learn from our abilities by some of the bad things that's happened in our life, but they do kind of help us make sense of it, you know?
That's true. That's very true.
And it amazes me. Do you think that he, you know, I'm a firm believer that we kind of know what we're getting into when we come into this life. Do you think that he knew about this prior to being born?
I think so. I believe that too. I believe that we choose. I mean, I don't know if you've ever read Betty Eadie's book, Embraced by the Light. I'll tell you if you've
heard of it. I've never read it.
I'll tell you what, it's like a pamphlet size. It's nothing to read. It's like you'll read it in an hour. But I mean, she had an NDE, a near-death experience, and went to the light or to God or whatever you want to say, and she asked, I want to remember this. I want to know why. Why did 2-year-olds get cancer and die? Why? Why is this, you know, why would I be more compassionate than God if there is a God? Why? And that's something a lot of us have asked. And I've never had a good answer until she wrote that book and I read it. She says that we are all in the spirit form there in the light, and we choose what we do here in this life. We choose, you know, you chose yourself. I chose myself. My son James chose himself. Those who choose to be born and then die within 5 seconds of their birth, those are the most holy beings because they're totally unselfish. They don't need to live 100 years to experience life and have fun down here like the rest of us.
Right.
They are so unselfish that they choose to die to teach something else to someone, those parents or those, you know, grandparents or whoever. And I thought about that, you know, that is literally the only thing that makes sense to the question, you know, why is there cancer in a 2-year-old? Why, you know, do serial killers kill all these innocent people? You know, that sort of thing. Everyone is here for a reason. They chose it, and they're, you know, playing out their life, their reason. That's heavy stuff, but yeah, it is.
It is pretty heavy, but it's true. I mean, go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was saying, and I think that's why.
Shut up.
No.
I love these kind of conversations. I can sit and talk about this crap forever. So,
I was just going to say, and I think that when we come back in successive lives, that, you know, there are different lessons that we're here to learn, and sometimes the spirit has to experience the same lesson more than once if they don't get it right. But,
sure.
I believe that way entirely.
I'm going to pick a skinnier body next time. I'm going to pick a skinnier body.
Me too.
This one likes donuts too much. That's
One that doesn't like donuts.
Oh God, that's what? No.
I mean, I don't think it's going to work.
My spirit will never go anywhere without a donut. What you're talking about, you crazy woman.
Laughs of logic there. They talk about throwing chocolate at women. We throw it at John.
They just throw me cookies or donuts, and I'm good.
You know, I did want to say before we get off here that usually, like when I go on something like this, I'll just say my own little piece and ask to be if there's anything that I'm supposed to pass on to anybody or whatever. And all day I've been getting a name that I don't know if it's for one of you or for somebody listening or what. I'm not sure, but it's Dale, and this Dale person keeps showing me like almost like a guitar, but it's not shaped like a guitar. It's shaped more teardrop, like an old lute or something. It's something weird. It's a weird-looking instrument. And also, I'm getting Carl and somebody that died of prostate cancer. So I don't know who this is for. If I'm just picking up some random stuff, but I just thought I would just put that out there in case anybody knows anything about this, and it's something for them.
Awesome.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
I do have a question for you. You said you read tarot, right?
Sure, yes.
What's your favorite deck?
Oh, I just use the old standard Rider-Waite. So that's just basically what I learned on back in the day, and that's just kind of what I stick with, old school.
Yeah, I've got all kinds of decks. I like them. I'm just curious on what your favorite was. So what else we got here? Anybody got any questions before we get off here? We're kind of getting close to the end here.
Debra, if anyone is interested in contacting you to either purchase a book or for readings, etc., what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, I've got a website. It's www.debrarobinson.net. That's DEBRA. So DebraRobinson.net is my website, and you can get my email and stuff from there. And either of the books are available in Barnes & Nobles and all over the place, or on Amazon. This new one is called The Dead Are Watching, Ghost Stories from a Reluctant Psychic. And the first book that tells all that crazy stuff about my son and all of his premonitions and everything is called A Haunted Life, The True Ghost Story of a Reluctant Psychic.
Just as sort of parting words, what advice would you give anyone that is trying to come to terms with their abilities?
I would say that, we all have this to a certain degree, some a little bit more than others, maybe because they're more open to it or whatever reason. But the fact is that it's not, you shouldn't fear it. You may find yourself, being more noticed by other things out there that are very terrifying at first. But to, not get too upset about that. Just remember, you are in control. You can say, get away from me, stop it, whatever. And you need to maybe check into some protection techniques. That would be my advice. And just learn a little bit about it and decide whether or not it's something you want to go ahead with and try to help others with. And I think you'll be good.
I agree. I think that, especially if you're just kind of starting out in this, having protection, and Lisa will tell you, I usually have a medicine bag, stones, at least 2 medicine bags on me at any given time. Mm-hmm. But I think if you're just starting out in this, you really should protect yourself. You are a conduit. It's just like the Ouija board. You're opening yourself up to the other side, and once you do that, you have to be able to close it. And if you're not protecting yourself, you can really get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Like me at age 12, I had no idea, I thought it was a toy, so you can invite some things in that are better not invited if you don't know how to deal with it is the problem.
And I think it takes a little investigation to figure out what works for protection for each person, because it's different.
I always tell people, just follow your faith system, whatever that is. I mean, if you're Christian, your crosses and crucifixes or whatever, if that works for you, great. Use what works. I think that intent is everything. I'm a firm believer in that, and I think that if you believe that the pebble you pick up off the road is going to protect you, then it will. So I just tell people the what now?
Great advice, I said.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, it's because you can't. Nobody believes the same, and even and you and I both, and Lisa both proved that even if you're whatever faith system you follow is going to be different than others that follow the same faith system. So whatever works for you, if it's a bag of sage or grass clippings from outside, who cares, as long as the intention's there.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
Debra, we really enjoyed having you with us, and I hope you'll come back and talk with us again and put up with our insanity.
Her insanity.
I absolutely will. I really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed the depth level that we got to talk about tonight.
Yeah, enjoyed the conversation. I want to do it again, definitely.
Sounds great.
Well, thank you very much.
And everybody stay tuned for Selena Rowan and Closer to Death. She has the Reverend Dr. Robin Marie. She's a numerologist and life coach. Thank you all for coming. Blessings.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.